Okay, Ashley, I have 6 o'clock. We good to go? Okay, welcome everybody to the July 2025 Planning and Town of Gilbert Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We don't have a study session tonight because we didn't have anything on it, so sorry if anyone's been waiting because we still had 5 o'clock on the website. I'm Bill Fay, I'm the vice chair, but the chairman's absent tonight, so I'd like to call the regular meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I say it? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And with that, Ashley, would you mind taking roll call?
Sure. Alternate Commissioner Huang. Alternate Commissioner Lyon.
Present.
Commissioner DeGravina.
Present.
Commissioner Gage.
I don't know how to press. What do I press? I'm the new thing. I'm here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Simon.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Fay.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll begin with discussion and approval of the agenda. So item 4 has been continued. Do we need to do anything with that, or do we need to make a separate motion to continue that? Or will that just, I guess we do, don't we? Or will that just, because it's on consent to continue, will that be part of the consent?
A separate motion, if you would,
Okay.
Vice Chair.
And then we've got item 5 on consent. And by the way, anyone who's here to talk in general, you'll have a chance to either talk in general at the call to the public or talk about a specific item if that's what you want. So we're not excluding anyone. And if anything we're putting on consent has someone who wants to speak on it, we'll keep it off. The Bella Storia Apartments. Anyone? Okay, Keith, you got your wish. Christmas came early. It's staying on consent. And the Good Day Car Wash, my understanding, this one's been pulled off consent? I see you putting a hand up. Is that yes? Oh, thumbs up. Okay. That is the only emoji. I'm still trying to figure out emojis. The only one I've got down is the thumbs up. And then the ranch has been pulled, so we're not putting that on consent. And then the only non-consent other thing we have is Aura, which I assume is not going to get moved to consent. So is the only change we have right now is to pull item 7. Oh, we've got some comment cards.
Vice Chair Fay, I do have a comment card for item number 5, and they do wish to speak.
Okay, so we will pull, I would take a motion. Is that the only one that we have comments on?
There's a comment card for item number 9, but that's not on consent.
Okay, so we would do I would entertain a motion from the panel from the commission to remove items 5 and 7 from consent and move them to the regular public meeting?
Jared, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So if you said earlier the ranch was pulled from consent to non-consent, but it's being continued to August, is there a reason why that's now on non-consent if it's
No,
continued?
it was never on, as I understand it, ranch was never on consent.
Okay, can we move, does it make sense to move item 8 to consent if it's being continued?
I mean, we can, but we still have to make a separate motion on it, don't we?
Yeah, I understand that, but let's just move it over.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's being continued till next month, there's no reason to have it on consent today or non-consent.
Okay, I mean, I don't know that it makes any difference, since all we're doing is continuing, but, okay.
We'll continue item 4, so, I mean, with that logic, why not just pull 4 off, move it over?
I guess we could do that too. Okay, I would entertain a motion to pull items 5 and 7 off consent and put item 8 on consent.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. With that, Ashley, can we, you do, Ashley, you're the one who does the activating thing, right?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Who hasn't? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, then the changes to the agenda have been approved. And with that, we will go to communication from the citizens. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission Board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified in the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to state law, action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or rescheduling the matter for further discussion. Does anyone, really what this is to talk about things that are not specifically on the agenda. Going? Yes? It's been moved onto the agenda. It was on consent. It's been moved onto the regular agenda. So you'll have a chance to talk about that too if you want to. Okay, then let's close communication from the citizens and report from our council liaison or on current events. I don't know, is he online tonight? Anyone from council? Okay. We miss you. Okay. And then we'll go on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda, well, but as part of the, all items listed below are considered public hearing consent calendar. The commission board may, by a single motion, approve any number of items where, after opening the public hearing, no person requests the item to be removed from the consented calendar. If such a request is made, which we already been through, the commission shall then withdraw the item from the public hearing consent calendar for the purpose of public discussion and separate action. Other items on the agenda may be added to the consent calendar and approved in a single motion.
Vice Chair, if I may,
Yes.
make a motion to approve the continuance to August 6, 2025 of item number 4, S2501, Happy and Higley.
Does anyone second that motion?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue item 4. Ashley? Oh, it's up. Vote has been cast. All votes are in, and the motion to continue item 4 has passed. And then the same thing for item 9. I'm sorry, item 8.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the continuance to August 6, 2025 of item 8, S2401, the ranch, and DR 2406, ranch.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Commissioner Davis. Please cast your votes. Okay, that one's done.
I'll make the final motion.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the consent agenda item number 6, DR 24-146, Bella Story Apartments, with the recommendation to approve.
I'll second.
I have a second from Commissioner Davis again. Everyone cast your votes, please. And with that, the consent agenda is approved. And then moving into the non-consent agenda, the first item that I see on the non-consent agenda is now item 5. UP 2450 T-Mobile. Ashley, can I have the comment cards? So at this point, I'm going to ask people who have public comment, I'm going to ask people to participate. I have 2 public comment cards. If anyone else wants to speak, would you please fill one of these out there and back? The first one does wish to speak. It is Neb Francois.
Chair?
Yes.
We have a presentation from staff first.
I'm sorry, is there a presentation from staff? Since it was on consent originally, I just skipped over that. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Vice Chair and Commissioners. Eric Prater, Planner One. The request before you tonight is for a new wireless communications facility, also known as a WCF, to be located here in the town. And get myself ready here. Okay. The subject site outlined in red is Payne Junior High School. It's part of Chandler Unified School District, and it is located at the southeast corner of Higley Road and Coldwater Boulevard. The applicant is proposing to construct a Category 3, 75-foot-high stealth structure in a 900-square-foot enclosure on 0.5 acres of the larger 27-acre parcel. WCF is proposed to be situated along the north central section of the property behind the existing tennis courts, where the red star is. The subject site is zoned Public Facility Institutional, or PFI. Category 3 WCFs are permitted to be located in the PFI zoning district with an approved conditional use permit. The proposed site at Payne Junior High School was selected by the applicant to fill a coverage gap that exists within the area. The proposed WCF is classified as a Category 3 WCF in the Land Development Code. Category 3 WCFs have a significant visual impact on surrounding properties due to an increased height and fewer requirements for concealment, and have a maximum height of 75 feet. The proposed facility will include one 75-foot stealth structure and associated ground equipment. The tower and associated equipment will be secured inside a 900-square-foot walled enclosure that is 8 feet in height. The WCF's placement is approximately 76 feet from the school building and about 35 feet from the existing tennis courts. The WCF stealth structure will be over 250 feet from the closest existing residential uses to the north, over 400 feet from the existing residential uses to the east, over 650 feet from the existing residential uses to the south, and over 800 feet from the existing residential uses to the west. Access to the proposed WCF site is provided from an existing access drive off of Coldwater Boulevard. The site will not contribute to overall traffic conditions in the area, as it will be an unmanned facility and visited only periodically for maintenance purposes. All associated ground-mounted equipment will be internalized and fully screened from view by an 8-foot-high wall enclosure, which will be constructed in materials to match the existing junior high school building. Both the tower and the equipment will be fully secured within the 900-square-foot screened enclosure. The proposed WCF is designed to be a large stealth structure. Large stealth structures fall under the Category 3 WCF classification of the LDC and are designed to conceal and/or camouflage the WCF to ensure it blends in the surrounding area to the maximum extent feasible. A couple of different stealth designs were provided by the applicant and presented to the Planning Commission at a study session in March of this year. As a result of the feedback provided by the Planning Commission, the applicant decided on a faux eucalyptus stealth design. Staff worked closely with the applicant on the stealth design to ensure that the faux eucalyptus will fully conceal the tower-mounted equipment and blend in with the surrounding area to the maximum extent feasible. Antennas and other pole-mounted equipment will be fully concealed by the stealth features of the faux eucalyptus tree. The proposed WCF will consist of 6 antennas and 6 radio modules mounted 71 feet above ground level. And these are some photo simulations. The upper left is a view looking to the east. The upper right is a view looking to the west. The lower left is a view looking, to the west as well. And then the last one on your lower right is on looking southeast. There are 7 required findings that are taken into consideration for a conditional use permit, and those findings are outlined here on the screen. And staff does believe that the findings have been met. And Public notification and input. Staff has received 2 phone calls and 1 email from the public. The feedback provided related to the stealth design, location or placement of the WCF on the site, and levels of radiation emitted from cell towers. In conclusion, staff believes that the 7 required findings have been met and recommend approval of UP 2450. And with that, any questions?
Any questions from the dais? Okay. Those wishing to speak, applicant makes their presentation. If members of the public would like to speak, you now have 3 minutes for single speakers, or if there's a group spokesman, which since there's only 2 of you, I believe there is not. And the first speaker would be Mr. Francois.
I just wanted to know where the placement of the tower was. I actually represent the developer who is to the south, who's consent item was pushed to next month. And so we just wanted to make sure that, thank you. Now you guys can hear me. I usually have a loud voice. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be looming like an iron giant on the backyards of some of the of our lots there on to the south. So with the current location and the design, I think we're fine with it. So it was just a concern about the potential location with it. So that's all.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Then the next speaker is Mr. Neville. Neville?
Sorry, sir, that's private number 9.
I'm sorry, that's number 9. I apologize. I thought Ashley only gave me the one. Sorry. Then that is the only speaker on this topic. I assume there's no further comments from staff or there's no real reason to respond to anything like that. Any members of the commission have questions or comments? With that, the chair will entertain a motion.
Sorry, do you want to close the public hearing and bring it back to the dais for conversation?
Yes, that would be a fantastic idea. Thank you.
Sorry to keep correcting you.
No, I need somebody to. Commission members ask questions. Chair calls for a motion in a second. Okay, we'll close the public comment and bring the matter back up to the dais for discussion. Yes.
Go ahead, Brian.
Chair Anderson.
It's a very nice fake tree tower.
Great comment.
They've come a long way over the years, so.
I mean, yeah, the thing is, they don't, I mean, if you look at it like, oh, I can tell that's a cell tower, yeah, but they're never that good, but if you're not really looking for them, they do seem to hide them, I think.
Well, I'd like to comment that I appreciate the applicant's willingness to go back and reconsider the design, because originally when we looked at this, it didn't look like something we appreciated. So I think this looks much better, and for all intents and purposes, I have no problem with it. So unless there's any other comment, I can make a motion.
I wanted to say the same thing. I think they've done a good job of redesigning that, and as that area gets developed, I think it's kind of going to be even more hidden. That's kind of an open area right now, so when development comes in, you're probably not even going to see it. So I think they did a pretty good job with it.
Okay.
With that, I'd be willing to make a motion to approve UP 2450 T-Mobile Payne Middle School WCF broadleaf tree for approval.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. I'm sorry, was that a second from Commissioner Simon, or?
You got it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Everyone, please cast your votes. Okay, that item passes 7-0. And that brings us to item 9, GP 2408, Aura at Santan. And I believe we have,
7.
oh, you're right. You're right. Recall that. Item 7, the Good Day Car Wash, which we do have a comment on also. And I believe this one's Keith's item also? Take it away, Keith.
Chair Fay, members of the commission, good evening. I will go ahead and give a full presentation since there is a member of the public that would like to speak on the project. Good Day Car Wash. The site is located at the south of the southwest corner of Ray and Higley Roads. It's within the Modera Gilbert master plan development. I will go ahead and show you that in just a second, but it's the site highlighted in red on the screen in front of you there. So the request tonight is for a design review to obviously approve this 5,500 square foot car wash with associated site improvements. So here's the Higley Commons master site plan. You guys are familiar with this. You've seen this before. It's at the southeast corner of that master plan, which the master plan, it's under construction now, most of it, but it has loft unit buildings up along Ray Road and then an apartment complex towards the back. And then lot 7 is the lot in question, and that is where the car wash is. Eventually, there will be another, there's a pad site to the north, lot 6. We don't know exactly what that user will be yet, even though it looks kind of like some type of drive-through use, but we don't know what that's going to be. But the site in general, and this small site, is a little about 1.38 acres. And like I said, it's phase 2 of this overall master plan. So here is a specific or a zoomed in version of the site plan. The access to the site is off of Higley Road, and they have 2 spots where they can access vacuums and so forth in double and 2-way drive aisles. But the main access to the actual car wash pay stations is towards the back of the site, towards the far west side. And there's 2 lanes for stacking and queuing, and then there is an escape lane. The site is zoned shopping center. The building, like I said a minute ago, is about 5,500 square feet, and there are 21 vacuum bays. Here's the landscape plan, 37% open space on the site. Very well landscaped for a car wash site. A lot of landscaping along Higley Road. And then there is a lot of landscaping that's about 15 to 16 trees or so along the southern boundary to help screen this car wash use from a visual impact standpoint, and hopefully noise as well, from the 3 residents that are to the south, that are immediately to the south. The elevations, pretty standard car wash building, about 25-foot tall building, generally flat roofing with a pitched tower over the entry or the front portion where the cars come out. Building is made of stucco and with some fiber cement paneling in that green color, and then some masonry type veneer. So a pretty standard building, and they've actually, some of the materials and colors match the Modera Gilbert development next door. Public participation, the applicant sent notices to all property owners within 300 feet, which is required by state statutes, and have the sign posted out on the site. And then staff has not had any comments or received any comments from surrounding property owners, or we haven't received any concerns from the public. So pretty standard, straightforward. Staff obviously recommends that you approve this tonight. And we do have one modified condition that we'd like to call to your attention. There is a vacuum spaces. Let's see if I can find it here. And that one's not a good one. This one shows it. In the kind of over near the trash enclosures, kind of on that aisle of parking or vacuum bays that's just north of the building, really close to that trash enclosure, is an ADA parking space. The car wash is required to have 2 total parking spaces. They have 2, but one of them is supposed to be ADA, so that is the ADA space. And in order to maintain ADA compliance, it has been, we are stipulating that they remove the vacuum portion for that ADA space so that it is a standard ADA space, so that employees that are ADA and so forth can park in that space and not have to worry about a vacuum boom and all these other things to kind of block or inhibit access. So we have a condition that says the vacuums for the ADA parking space shall be removed to ensure unobstructed accessibility and compliance with ADA standards. So that is a condition that we would like to add. And that concludes my presentation. So if you have any questions, I'm here, I can answer them, and the applicant's also here too if you have any specific questions. Thank you very much.
Keith, the reason this was coming off consent was because of that condition related to the ADA spot. That was the only other reason, and the fact that the public is here now.
Chair Fay, members of the commission, that is correct. It's the only reason why.
Members of the commission, does anyone have any questions? Brian first, then, I'm sorry.
Keith,
Commissioner
thank you for the
Anderson.
presentation. So who on staff did an ADA review to come up with this conclusion, that they're understanding the ADA
My direction.
code correctly?
Chair Fay, Commissioner Anderson, we have, our building department does look at that as well, but it was kind of a staff, oversight by staff to have vacuum
How did you come-
spaces on the,
How did
on
you come to
the
the
stall,
conclusion?
so.
What in the ADA code did you read, come to this conclusion,
We-
saying that this doesn't have to be an ADA stall accessible for patrons? It sounds like you're just trying to make it a ADA stall in case there's an employee that works there.
Yeah.
So help me understand your understanding.
Chair Fay, Commissioner Anderson, I don't personally know the ADA code, so I can't cite to you what the requirements are. But we wanted that space to be uninhibited, and it's been our practice throughout the town to make sure that these ADA spaces don't have vacuum stalls. We've done this on a lot of other car washes. But if you as a commission feel that having vacuum spaces does not violate the ADA code or the ADA standards and would like to keep the vacuums there, that's your prerogative. But it has been something that we have done in other car washes throughout the town of Gilbert to have them remove the vacuum stalls or the vacuum boom and all those things to make sure that it's more easily accessible.
Okay, so if I'm looking at this plan, there's 2 vacuum booms on each side of that stall. So if a patron were to show up in a van accessible, an accessible van or a car, and, you know, they want to vacuum it somehow, do they still have that option to do so?
Chair Fay, Commissioner Anderson, I believe we would only probably want to remove the vacuum boom, I don't know, just on the, yeah, probably on both sides, right? You're correct? So I don't think they would have the ability to use a vacuum if they parked in that space. That's correct.
Okay. I personally don't agree with the interpretation of the ADA codes. It's not a prerogative thing up here, and I mean, we just need to make sure that we're compliant with what the ADA, or ADAG really, is what it's calling for. And if the town is doing this on other car washes, I mean, to me, that's not a precedent unless the town absolutely did a thorough code search to make sure that they are interpreting the code correctly. I mean, if you were to get rid of vacuums on that stall, I would suggest it would be the one that's on the access aisle side. Because now so now I'm thinking more about the ADA codes for when it comes to parking. Really, the way it's written is you're supposed, if you have different types of parking on site, you're really supposed to provide one type of parking for whatever it is. So I'm going to use multifamily as an experience because I'm really familiar with that. So if you have covered parking, open stalls, and garages, technically you're supposed to provide 2% of each of those types as an ADA stall. So would if I understand you correctly, you're kind of creating 2 types of parking here. You're creating parking for patrons to use, and then you want to separate that and create this ADA stall in case there's an employee there that's handicapped. So with my understanding of the ADA codes, technically you would have to provide 2% of each type, which would mean this site would have to have 2 ADA stalls, one for employees and one for the public. And for the public, they would have to have that vacuum to meet that requirement of the code. So I'm not sure I really support that, and I wasn't, I mean, I'm sure I've seen plenty of these in the future, but just wasn't aware you guys were doing that.
Chairman and Commissioner Anderson, if I can actually offer a little bit of clarity. What it is that we don't allow the vacuum spaces to be counted as parking spaces. They're part of the use. And so the ADA space to satisfy ADA requirement is there's 2 employee spaces on the north side of the aisle that are reserved for employees, and those meet the requirement for required parking for this use. And then the vacuum bays are not considered parking spaces.
Okay, but it's not required parking per code, but you get an ADA consultant to come out here, they're gonna look at it differently. So my suggestion is, whoever the architect is on this, make sure they do a thorough code research on this and make sure that they're covering themselves with this whole ADA requirement. From my understanding of it, I don't support that, requirement that you're trying to tack onto this. Thank you.
Commissioner Simon?
I have nothing to add. Actually, Commissioner Anderson voiced exactly what I was thinking.
Oh, okay. Anyone else? To be fair, I think I'm the one who actually caught this issue in our discussion earlier, and in the past, we haven't counted vacuum stalls as parking, so if it has vacuums, it's not parking, and if it's parking, it doesn't have vacuums, and that was kind of that seems to be the city's practice. So I think I raised that at you. And then we also have a comment card from the public. It's one card with 2 names on it, Abby and Jessica Peak, I believe? Abby and Jason Peak, yes, sorry. Peck. Okay. Mr. Peck, you have 3 minutes?
3 minutes, all right. It's my first time, so forgive me. So I am one of the houses right next to the Good Day Car Wash that Keith brought up. So I live directly next to it, and I'm proposed to this car wash. Kind of some points I want to get across first are we weren't notified. We just bought this house back in January, and we haven't heard about this proposal. Other 2 are rentals, and one of them is empty right now, so I don't think they've been given proper notice. But I can only speak for myself. And honestly, as a neighbor, I'm really concerned about the impact this will have on our quality of life. We already have a car wash right on Higley and Ray. It's cobblestone right next to the QT right there, less than a mile away. And adding a third, and there's actually one right next door to the Shell station that they're building. There's a car wash right there as well. And there's actually one down the road on Ray as well for the Target. So adding a third one just feels unnecessary and disruptive. This project brings noise, extra noise, lighting, traffic, water use, all right next to my home, our home. And I'm just wondering, has the town evaluated what effects this will have on nearby residents? Have we looked at other options that might add more long-term value to the neighborhood? I'm asking the commission to pause this approval and consider alternatives that better reflect what the community needs, actually needs. In short, we need more time. I would love to talk to my neighbors more about this and actually see if they want a car wash right next to their house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. Keith, can I ask you about 2 things? Well, first, Ashley, the use as a car wash is already entitled, right? This is only a design review?
That's correct.
Okay. So the idea that a car wash is going here was decided some time ago. This is the what does the car wash look like decision. And Keith, can I get you to talk to public outreach or what happened?
Oh, can I just say something? To your comment?
No, I think the public comment period's over. Thank you, I'm sorry. Yeah, Keith?
Yeah, Chair Fay, members of the commission. Yeah, the public outreach design review case is based on state statutory requirements that requires that we send notices, a letter in the mail, to all property owners, not residents, but property owners within 300 feet of the project boundary.
And the,
We own our property, and we're right next to the boundary line.
Okay. You should have received a letter in the mail or some kind of notice.
We did not.
Okay. And then we also have a sign posted, a big 4x4 yellow sign posted. It should be posted along Higley Road. So that's the minimum requirements for notification.
It's the city that sends out notification, not the applicant?
Chair Fay, members of the commission, it's the applicant that sends those out.
Okay, sorry.
We,
that's
we
the-
provide the applicant with like a template, like a map, and like a little template or a notice that they can send. And then we provide them with a template for the sign that they need to post. They are the ones who post the sign and send the actual notice to the residents within those parameters.
Okay.
Chairman, if I can also remind you to give the applicant an opportunity to speak if they'd like.
Yes, okay. Keith, would they like to address this topic? Commission, we'll get commission members ask questions. That's number 7. Okay, there.
My name's John Riddell with John Riddell Architects, 4992 South Gilbert, Arizona. All the notices were sent. The city provides us a list of mailings, and we mailed it to all those. If they just bought their property in January, the first mailing that went out was probably February. I believe we sent the first mailing out, and I did receive 4 envelopes back as wrong address. And that's all I can state on their concern that they did not receive one. As far as presenting this, we looked at the location of it next to those houses. There is a 50-foot non-activity strip that is required along the south side. And the driveways and things don't count as activity, but the pay station does. That's what dictated with just 2 pay stations there. Then along that whole landscape area, we had to provide, I think it was 14 or 18 trees doubled up all down through that area to help provide for that separation also. We located the building to the kind of the center section. We have the drive-through on the south for the pay stations, but all the activity is done inside the building. There is no outside equipment. There's just the vacuum hoses on the vacuum stanchions to the north, and we put all that activity to the north. Now, the operation hours are 7 a.m. to 8, and then it closes down. That's summer hours. Winter hours are even shorter in the evenings. They usually make them around 6 shut down or so in the winter time. But we kind of looked at all this for protecting the residents to the south. This was done as part of the master plan, and the use was part of that when the zoning package came through originally for the whole master plan. We just looked at trying to make it the most effective and separating as possible from the residential.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Anderson? More for staff? Then not hearing any, thank you. I'm going to bring the discussion back up here to the dais, close the public comment, and ask if any commissioners have questions of anyone or comments. Commissioner Anderson?
I have a question for staff. So regarding the mailings, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought mailings went out 14 or 15 days before the hearing date. Is that correct?
Chair Fay, Commissioner Anderson, that's correct.
So I'm not sure why the applicant's saying that mailings went out in February. I mean, they would have went out mid-June. So if that was the case, then the neighbors should have got their mailings. I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you.
Yeah. Chair Fay, Commissioner Anderson, yeah, all I know is we sent them the information about the applicant about 4 weeks ago, and we received affidavits from them stating that they sent mailers out at least 15 days prior, so.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Simon?
Question for staff. So it appears that there is a 6-foot wall currently between the neighborhood and where that lot is. Do we know the distance from the front of those residences to where that escape lane is?
Chair Fay, Commissioner Simon, yes, there is a 6-foot tall wall on that southern boundary of the property, which is actually the wall that was built with when the homes were built. So if I understand you correctly, you're asking for the distance from that wall to the escape lane? Or I thought you said from the front of the homes, but.
I was looking more for the front of the homes, just to get an idea. I mean, I can look at the diagrams and see, the distance from the wall, it appears, to the escape lane. I just wasn't sure how wide that access road is there. The access drive that looks like to the back of the residences.
Chair Fay, Commissioner Simon, I don't know the distance from the front of the homes, but the distance from that wall to the escape lane is about 34, 35 feet. So I don't know how long deep those lots are. I would imagine those lots are 100, 110 feet deep. I would imagine, so, and they're probably set back 15 to 20 feet from the front property line. So I guess you're looking at, I'm really bad at math, by the way, so you're looking at well over 100 feet, 130 feet, 100 or so feet, maybe? The front of their houses, maybe?
Okay, thank you.
Bill?
Yes.
Keith, I got one comment on the mailings. Do you guys go off the county recorder's list? Because if that's the case, when they purchase their home, it's recorded, but it's not updated. So that might be the reason why you possibly didn't get something. I don't know the time lag, but there is a time lag.
Chair Fay, Commissioner DeGravina, yeah, the applicant creates the list. They pull the list from the county recorder's office or from the parcel search, the Maricopa County Assessor's maps. So that's where we get them from. That's where they get them from. And then we verify it when we do the review to make sure that they're notifying the correct properties and notifying everybody within 300 feet. We don't check to see if sometimes if the owners are, depending on how, sometimes they give us the list at the beginning of the process, which could be 6 months before it comes to hearing. So if there's been a change of ownership in between that time, we won't know about it. But we do verify the list at the beginning of the review process.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? And if there are no other questions or comments, I would call for a motion, one way or another.
So just for clarity, I just want to make sure we're keeping the stipulation or the change that staff is recommending. Is that what this motion is?
Could you reiterate what, so the change, as I understand it, well, it's going to, actually, I guess it depends on the motion we want to make here.
Modified condition. So are we,
Would we want to, I mean, you could make a motion to approve it without the modified condition, or with, depends on which way who makes the motion and what they want.
I'm okay with keeping the modified condition, but I want to reword it where project architect to do a thorough ADA code review on it to make sure it's compliant. I mean, no offense, staff is not an ADA expert, and from my workings with the ADA codes, A117 and FHA, I have suspicions that this modified condition is not applicable. So if we can modify the condition stating that, I'm fine with it. And then it just puts the liability on the project architect to make sure that the project is in compliance with ADA.
I don't think people up here disagree with you. I haven't heard from this side of the table, but I did from this side, but maybe make that motion, because then that way we can make sure it says what you want.
Before we have a motion on the table, can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I would just like to comment that I appreciate the residents coming out. Unfortunately, this is just literally looking at design review. The car wash has already been approved for this site, and I think a number of us on the dais actually had some issue to some extent with having a car wash on this site just because of what was going in there. It was passed, it was approved through council. So we're actually looking at design review. Again, appreciate you coming out. I don't know what the miss is with regards to the mailings. It sounds like they were sent out, but it sounds like you didn't receive them. It should have been sent out. I believe they're sent to the owner or current resident when they do send those out. So I would assume that it wasn't returned back to the sender. But just want to make sure that we make that clear, that we are looking at a design review case, that the car wash is already approved.
Excellent, thank you. I see your hand moving, yep, you get that
I'm
look.
debating whether or not wanted to add to that.
Commissioner Davis?
I agree with what Commissioner Simon said. Also, I feel like there's a substantial landscape buffer, trees. The applicants moved to put the building in such a place that it's just those drive aisles where people are coming in to pay for their car wash. I appreciate that the vacuums, which is where the real noise happens, is on the north side of the building away from the residents. It's unfortunate when you have car washes next to residents, but again, this is about the design review. I feel like the applicant's done a fairly good job of buffering the neighbors from the harshness of that use. So I'm in support of it.
Okay. Then if there's no other comments or questions, I will call for a motion.
I can make the motion. Keith, are you, from what I stated earlier, are you in agreement, or are you okay with modifying that condition the way I kind of suggested?
Chair Fay, Commissioner Anderson, that would be fine. I'd be okay with that.
Okay,
I don't think we'd be opposed to that.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and make the motion for approval, modifying the modifying condition to read such as the vacuums for the ADA parking space shall be removed to ensure unobstructed accessibility and compliance with ADA standards. As long, after a thorough ADA code review has been completed by the project designer to show that ADA parking remains in compliance. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there
I'll
a
go ahead
second?
and second the motion.
I have a second from Commissioner Simon. With that, I will call for a vote. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you for coming out. Sorry it wasn't the outcome you wanted. And then the next item is item 9, Aura at Santan. Ashley, you're doing this one yourself?
Thank you, Chair and Commission. This is GP 2408 and Z 2420, Aura at Santan. The request before you is for both a general plan amendment and a rezoning. The general plan amendment seeks to amend the land use classification on 14 acres from regional commercial to residential greater than 25 to 50 dwelling units per acre. And then the rezoning application is on those same 14 acres, and it proposes to amend the PAD for Val Vista Square and change the zoning on site from regional commercial with the PAD to mixed-use large with a planned area development overlay. So the subject site is located off of Market Street. It's southeast of the southeast corner of Pecos and Val Vista Road. You can see on this aerial map there is some scattered development around the existing, or around the site. The Novell multifamily piece is just located at the, to the northwest of the site, the VA hospital to the west, and then there's an Aldi and a bank north of the subject site off of Pecos Road. Looking at the existing general plan classification, the site is currently designated as regional commercial. on the general plan, you can see there is the Novell development just adjacent to the property that has the general plan classification of residential, 25 to 50 dwelling units per acre. And then looking at the zoning map, the site is currently zoned regional commercial. It follows that similar development pattern with multifamily where the Novell site is located. The applicant has provided a land use exhibit just demonstrating the subject area that they're seeking to rezone and then amend this portion of the PAD. So I thought it would be helpful to do just a little bit of a walkthrough about this site, kind of where it started. It actually started prior to 2012 as part of Main Street Commons. But in 2012, they made a pretty significant change to the plan and created the Val Vista Square development that planned this commercial corner. This was part of Ordinance 2380. This ordinance showed a variety of buildings and kind of parking fields, but ultimately laid out circulation for the site. And then in 2019, we saw a development plan that came in and amended this for the Novell multifamily development. And so over the years, there has been some changes to this property that have kind of brought us to where we are today with this vacant piece at the back of Market Street. You could see as we walk through those that it really hasn't developed in the way that it was originally planned. And that has created some challenges with this site. So the applicant before us today is requesting a rezone on the 14 acres. And it would also amend that existing development plan for Val Vista Square that I had on the previous screen. When we first started having some conversations with the applicant team on this, and they had approached us about doing some multifamily here, we had suggested that they consider looking at the mixed-use zoning districts that we had adopted recently. We thought that this was probably a pretty good site for that type of development. And so that brings us to the application that we have today. The applicant is processing a concurrent design review application on site. These specific items are not included as part of the rezoning, but I think it's helpful for the discussion. The multifamily would include 357 units, bringing the density to 25.1 dwelling units per acre. On the site, there are three buildings. I know it's a little bit hard to see in this exhibit, but there's 3 total buildings. Building 1 is at the southwest corner of the site, would have about 10,000 square feet of office on the ground floor. Building 3, the northernmost building, has about 5,000 square feet, and then building 2 in the center is primarily residential building. As part of their request, the applicant is requesting a number of deviations to the site. The first is to increase both the common and private open space within the development. For private open space, our code requires 40 square feet per unit. The applicant is proposing 60 square feet. And then in terms of the open space across the site, the code requires 20% where the applicant is providing 28%. In addition, they're looking to modify the build to line. So for our mixed use zoning districts, the idea is that we bring those buildings close to the street to help activate the street. In this case, the property or the zoning district requires that the buildings be built at the 10-foot build to line. With this property, there are some utility challenges that require them to push the buildings back, and so they're requesting to deviate that standard to 45 feet due to existing site constraints. The primary deviation, though, that staff wants to talk about is their request to modify the portion of the mixed-use zoning district that requires them to develop a non-residential land use, or one of the retained uses from the existing zoning district, which is regional commercial. The code requires that they provide 20% of the total floor area would be that non-residential land use. In this case, the applicant is seeking a reduction from 20% down to 3%. The total building area is 460,000 square feet. And as I had mentioned previously, the total amount of office space that they're seeking to develop is 16,000 square feet. That's staff's primary concern with this request, the significant deviation from the standard of the code. And just as we continue, actually, I think I've got a couple slides. So, you know, as we continue to reach, build out, and continue to grow, each of our commercial or non-residential properties become even more and more important to us to make sure that we have a balanced land use framework moving forward. And so we evaluate where, you know, commercial exists in the town, where multifamily exists within the town. And specifically, this site is part of the Central 202 core growth area, which does speak towards high-density residential development. where residential uses are closely integrated with retail office in a compact development. And so we felt that this was a good this property was a good candidate for the mixed-use zoning district. But I think we're a little bit concerned about the integration between the non-residential land uses compared to the high percentage of multifamily that's being proposed in an area of the town that already has a significant amount of multifamily. I know I touched on this briefly, but if we look at the land use breakdown across the town, 70% of the town is residentially designated, where only 9.5% of the town is set aside for commercial. And so as we just evaluate these land use changes, it's really important that we consider where it makes sense to go from commercial to residential. And I think in this case, we're seeking a little bit better balance. We did take this application to the Chamber of Commerce for their review. Back in March, we did receive feedback from the Chamber that they do also believe that it's a great site for the mixed-use concept, but that essentially it should comply with the standard requirements of the Land Development Code. So for those reasons, staff is recommending denial of the applications, both the general plan amendment and rezoning. Should the commission wish to approve this, there are a number of conditions that staff would recommend that you add to the rezoning application. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and I know the applicant's here as well.
Are there any commission questions before we hear from the applicant? Commissioner Anderson?
Ashley, thank you for the presentation. I just want to make sure, I'm understanding this correctly. So if we go to the deviations, where is it? Or the project data table. If I'm getting the impression for staff, the big thing that you guys don't really agree with is just the minimum floor space retained for RC, going from 20% to 3.49%. Is that the big key for you guys?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Actually, I did talk with the applicant or the applicant's attorney and actually I provided some feedback that this was too big a lift when I was when it came at the study session. We were talking, really came down to kind of a math problem of what's in the numerator and what's in the denominator to get you that percent. To me, when I look at mixed use, if you've got a 5-story building, the first floor is retail, the other 4 are apartments, that to me is 20%, you're good to go. Where does parking factor in on that equation?
Yeah, so in our code, we require them to provide garage parking spaces or enclosed parking spaces. And so that is factored into the total square footage. I actually broke it down here on this slide. The residential garage makes 24,000 square feet. I did the calculations and I removed that. So say we were to not include parking as part of the total floor area, it really moves that percentage an insignificant amount. I wish I had written it down. I think the amount of it that was retained use from the original zoning district, I think was still in the 3% range. So it went from 3.49 to 3.8. I don't remember. I can certainly look that up and get back to you.
But the surface parking that's on the north end of the site, does that count? Or is it only the building?
Vice Chair, that does not count. That's not included in the calculations. It's just floor area of buildings themselves.
And how many stories tall are these buildings?
They, I believe, are 4.
4, okay.
A mixture of 3 and 4.
So I guess part of it is you've got garages, and you've also got the space behind the garages. That seems kind of like a tough sell to put retail behind the garages on the inside. But maybe that goes to why we would deviate a little bit or something like that. Anyway, if no one else has any comments, we could hear from the applicant.
Members of the commission, thank you for your time. When I started this case with staff, December, They said, we like the project, we like the use, we kind of need to get a little bit more commercial. And I think the phrase they said was a soft denial. I can't think of a more kinder denial recommendation than what Ashley just gave. I appreciate the words and the way she helped set this up. Mr. Fay, before I give my presentation, may I answer your question as directly as I can? If you take out the square footage of the garages on the bottom floor and just count the ratio of residential versus commercial, we're like 16%. And so
16?
16% of just the ground floor only.
Oh, of the ground floor,
Yes.
not of the total?
Yeah, so what Ashley is correct. If you add all floors, then you're still, low numbers. But anyways, for the sake of the presentation, I'd love to walk you through a little bit about why we're here today. Okay. Is it me that pushes it? Okay. I wonder why it's pointing you the laser in the eye. Here's what's interesting about this site. When you look at it, there's a story behind it that I don't think many people will be aware of if they haven't lived in Gilbert more than 20 years. But you can kind of see what's happening around here between the hotel, the VA hospital, the multifamily next door, the Aldi, the Winco. But on its appearance, you'd say, well, why not just do more commercial? Because you have some commercial in the area. This site has had commercial zoning since 1999. And there's been 0 pre-apps and 0 development applications in all these years. And I don't think it's because of the location of the site. This is a commercial area all day long. So there's other factors here that are affecting this site. What I want to point out here is in 2004, there was this project called Main Street Commons. Main Street Commons was from the developers Woodbine. They're the same developers that built Kierland Commons in Scottsdale, and you probably are familiar with it. Bottom floor retail, upper floors residential. And they wanted to replicate the success of Kierland Commons and bring it down to Gilbert. And everybody was super excited about it. All along, the plan was to do residential above ground floor commercial. But what nobody anticipated was a recession. And that recession happened shortly after this was approved. And the unpredictability of the recession in 2007 and 2013 directly impacted this project. It went into receivership and default and was purchased by multiple owners. And as a result, what was a great vision and a uniform master plan now became broken pieces, so to speak. Distressed sale of multiple different property owners. And at some point, someone rezoned it again in 2012 for Val Vista Square. I think the thought was, well, broken plan, maybe we can try a new plan. But I think as Ashley pointed out, even the new plan actually hasn't really been carried out. And it's not because they weren't good plans, it's because you have a really poor street circulation on the backside. And so after 25 years, we're here to actually correct the problem that was created. And I'm going to call the problem created by the Main Street Commons plan and the roadway that was in place. But what I'm asking for, residential above commercial, is actually already allowed on the property today and has been on this property for 2 decades. It's just the amount of residential, the lack of a full commercial below is what brings me here today. As you notice, though, in the staff report, those red boxes clearly indicate an expectation of residential above commercial. Now, this is Kierland Commons, and when you look at Kierland Commons, you can see a really good balance of a variety of land uses, from residential to office to hotel to multifamily. I think this really did a good job. This is the trade market for this area. Heavy, heavy retail. And if I could speak on behalf of the owner, we would prefer retail here as well. They certainly would have paid significantly more than multifamily over all the years that they would have come here. We've marketed it for retail since 2009 in our ownership. We've marketed it for office for 7 of those years. We've consistently tried to make this anything but what we're trying to do today. But there's a reason why this is the donut hole in this trade area of a whole bunch of retail. And the difference is because of the roadway network that's in this area. Now let me show you our plan a little bit, because Ashley's covered it, but for the sake of the context of the area. We are 16,000 square feet of commercial rentable space with an additional 3,000 square feet of commercial outdoor amenity space. And that's not a requirement that the town puts on us. But for us to be successful with this commercial, we need to activate it better along the streetscape. So it has a stronger base to attract commercial users and tenants. We've added an amenity that you don't normally see in this area. Our units are 357, and our commercial is in 2 of the 3 buildings. They are walkable. Our buildings screen the parking lot from behind, so the parking's not necessarily visible. And it really is back to the urban design that was originally planned here from the beginning in 2004. We have more open space than is required, and we have a significant amount of parking, including 92 garage spaces. This helps you understand what is on the ground floor. The yellow boxes are the garages. The blue boxes are the commercial. The red boxes are the residential amenities like the clubhouse, the fitness, the leasing office, and the white is the residential units. So on the ground floor, the unfortunate part of the math, maybe to my detriment, but I don't know if the town really thought through this when they were doing the mixed-use ordinance, is that when you got to determine the 20%, it's punishing us by making us count the garage spaces as part of that denominator. So it's unnecessarily sort of reducing our percentage relative to the overall project. If you were to take out those yellow boxes and maybe not count that as a denominator, we'd have about 16% of our ground floor be commercial uses. Clearly still far under short what the code requires, but I also recognize we're the first one to actually implement the mixed-use district. And I think that's why you take cars on a test drive to figure out the bugs and whether you like it or not. And I think we in real time are realizing some things that we can't control, like the requirement to have garages for a project, but then the garages sort of prevent your ability to put commercial on the backside. And so it's a balance of these two things that really help, that we've had to be careful with. But as you saw this the first time, if that's helpful for you to see the comparative, when you saw us at the first study session to where we are today, we've reduced units from 366 to down to 357. We've almost doubled our commercial from 9,000 to 16,000, plus the extra 3,000 of commercial plaza outdoor amenity spaces. Our open spaces is significant, and our parking has gone up. So why would I rezone this then if I already am allowed to do multifamily above it? Well, there's 4 things that have changed the dynamic that necessitate a change of zoning right here, and I want to walk through these first 4. First one is Santan Village versus Main Street Commons was an arms race for tenants. And it was whoever comes out of the ground first is a winner, because they were both identical projects. If you go to Santan Mall, you may just be shopping at the Apple Store but not realizing there's actually office above all the buildings. And that's what Main Street Commons was supposed to do. And both of them were racing for the same tenants at the same time. In fact, I remember the Apple Store was here committed before they jump ship to the yellow box, because the yellow box is coming out of the ground first. So as a consequence, this arms race had this competition between tenants. Santan Village came out first. They became more successful. Main Street Commons started quick. They were still willing to go all 12 rounds of this, tenant fight. But what they couldn't predict was that the recession was going to come. So even though they put the infrastructure in, the roadway, particularly Market Street, as it bent down through this project, the recession, it was a knockout punch for the blue area. And the recession essentially decimated the vision for Main Street Commons. And what was one master plan development, under one ownership, became multiple owners who all they cared about was buying distressed assets, holding them, and then selling off to whoever would pay for it. And so they weren't able to execute the vision. But the unfortunate part was the road was already there, and you can't change the road. And so as a result, it was a failed project. Let's take a closer look at this road. And this is the second point of why the zone change makes sense. This roadway is very different on Market Street, which is sort of the ignored, neglected part of this Main Street area, as opposed to Pecos Road. So this little red line here represents the analysis. And this is the town's traffic data. When I look at the town's traffic data, what I found is that this red road is trafficked significantly less than Pecos Road. And I'm not just talking about a little less. The difference is 630 to 850% less during the peak time. So if I'm a retailer, Walmart, Target, whatever, there's no chance I'm going to come to Market Street when there's no trips on Market Street. And to give you an idea, during its peak time on this data, it's 29 cars a minute on Pecos Road where that red dot, number 3, is. For comparative purposes, that blue dot on the bottom, number 6, is 3 cars a minute. So I don't have to tell you why retail won't come to this property, even though this is a very, very strong and healthy retail corridor. So if retail is not coming here, it's because the vision that was set forth that put in this roadway is the big hurdle here. And I don't think if the recession had started before they put in the roadway, I don't think we would have had Main Street Commons, and I don't think we would have had this roadway network. And we'd be having a very different conversation. The third thing that really changed here was because there were multiple owners, and you sort of just buy these distressed assets and you just look for someone to take it off your hands. VA Hospital purchased this property. And once you brought in the VA Hospital, which is needed in the area, but it changed the entire dynamic of what Main Street Commons was gonna be, but you still got stuck with the road there. And so when you're trying to create this walkable, retail, Kierland-esque type of project, it ended the moment the VA hospital came. And so as a result, there's no more uniform vision, no more development, but the streets are already in place and you have to work with what you've got at that point. And so these parcels begin to sell off to just whoever's gonna buy them. But without a master plan, it's just sort of who's presenting the best offer at the time. And that's why you start to see piecemeal development happen. You'll see a bank come to the corner, then you'll see an Aldi's come in, but ironically, Aldi's doesn't come right to the street. And then eventually you'll see the apartments come in. Now, this is not a master plan at all. This is just people working with accepted offers. And then you start to see the Bikini Beans, which I'm sure none of you have been there. The drive-through coffee shop along Val Vista Road. And now you have a hotel, a fourth hotel coming to the piece behind it. So as a result, there's no master planning. This isn't the vision that was executed originally. But the problem is you are stuck with this roadway that would never have been built here if you weren't building Main Street Commons. And so we have to live with the consequence of that. Now, there's 4 remaining vacant parcels, but all of those are on retail corridors where we would never put our project on there because they have vitality, they have a possibility. We believe they will develop with commercial retail uses. In fact, the ownership has had multiple offers on some of these parcels, but they're not the type of uses that would strengthen this economic corridor. Putting a gas station there isn't gonna benefit anybody. And so being picky on the right users has let them preserve and set these ones aside because they are on streets well-traveled and can be successful. But this back piece, 0 pre-apps, 0 applications, and almost 0 demand. After 7 years of marketing as an office and 16 years marketing it as a commercial center, and 25 years with commercial zoning. So what other things can you put on this property? Well, I think I already covered retail. I don't need to cover that one again. I don't think anyone, nor would I ever be able to show my face around here again if I brought single family onto this property. Well, should we consider some industrial? Industrial had its heyday, but there are better areas where they are better contextually located. How about maybe a municipal building? We'd love for the town to buy us, put a park here because it's challenging itself. But I think somebody once asked, well, what about a large office campus, you know? They don't need a lot of drive-by trips like a retailer would be. And frankly, we would love to have a large office campus come here. And Bryan Companies had marketed it for years as a build-to-suit opportunity. And the large office didn't want to come here. But part of it is, if you look right now, there's 40,000 square feet of vacant office directly south of us that's been marketed for 1.5 years and unoccupied. And so 40,000 square feet seems like, that's a whole floor plate, by the way. So someone, if they wanted a large office, could go there right now. And then north of us is Rome Towers, where there's several smaller vacant suites between 4,000 to 10,000 square feet. So if they wanted smaller spaces, they go there. So neither one is really moving. So dumping 14 acres of more massive office post-COVID would be suicide. And if you really wanted to develop 14 acres of commercial of office, you would just go to Rivalon, where office is intended to be, and there's 100,000 plus square feet of vacant office over there. So if I just look at the office market, there's 8.5 million square feet of office between Chandler and Gilbert submarket. 31% that's vacant. In Metro Phoenix area, there's 5 offices being built right now. 5 million people in the metro area, and only 5 offices are being built, 4 of which are built to suite. So that's not happening, and I don't even think staff believes that this is an office site as well. So I don't have to argue to prove a point that you well know. So if it's so bad, why am I proposing ground floor commercial and office? What makes us different and why we can be successful is I call it the Goldilocks zone. There is a sweet spot of office that does work. It's just the right amount. What's achievable on this project, because we have those 3 different ground floor areas across the buildings, I can build offices that are 1,500 square feet to 4,000 square feet. I can market them and I can flex them. I can be nimble with them. It's hard for someone to lease 40,000 square foot floor plate. But someone can come and say, I need 1,200 square feet, or I need 3,600 square feet. It's exactly what we can do here. The problem is, if I didn't have multifamily, I can't build that nimble type of product and lease it out at market rate. It costs significantly greater in construction costs and interest rates to build it than what it's leasing for right now up and down Val Vista Road in Spectrum. But the reason why I can lease this here is because I can subsidize it with the cost of the apartments. By building apartments above, I'm forced to build retail below, but I can rent it out at the market and not at the cost to build that retail because I have the subsidized element of the multifamily above it. Now, someone said, well, why not just build more of that flexible, nimble retail below? You know, can't you add more than 16,000 feet? Can't you get to like 20%? And it's just really simply math. There's no more parking I can fit on the property to accommodate an extra square footage of commercial. So we came down from the study session 9 or 11 units. And that gave us the ability to add more office. But I could only add enough office based on the parking I had available on my site. If you look between the first study session to today, I added 70, almost 80 plus parking spaces just so I could get in the extra commercial. But I have squeezed out and maxed my site up to the setback line. So I have nowhere to add more parking, short of asking for deviations on landscape islands or landscape setbacks. And so even if I just lost a residential unit and put commercial in there, the ratio between residential and parking and commercial parking isn't the same 1-to-1. So long story short, I think the reason why we have what we have today is because of the feedback he gave us. The feedback from the Chamber of Commerce, who wrote a letter of support, but recognized they want us to get us closer to what the requirement was. And at the time they wrote that letter, we were less than 9,000 square feet. So now we've almost essentially doubled it. Now, while I couldn't add more office or retail, because I didn't lack the commercial parking spaces, I could add commercial amenity spaces, because that doesn't require parking. And so what we did for all our commercial ground levels is place more outdoor spaces in front of them so they can be activating, so they can be visible from the street, so they can be engaging with the street, and they can be utilized by those commercial tenants. So if it's a restaurant, they can have outdoor dining or patio, or if it was an office tenant, they can have outdoor plaza, whatever. But the point is, I don't have to park that the same way that I would occupiable space. And so in a lot of ways, we're about almost 20,000 square feet. And that's why this project makes sense. When we look at these orange areas here, to achieve walkability, the orange areas lead up north to Aldi or over east to Winco. So our guests and tenants live here can walk to the only 2 retail spaces near them. And this is more in line with the original vision of the PAD to begin with. In fact, it's probably the only piece that actually implemented it. Now, if I didn't have this roadway here, I wouldn't be bringing this project. Frankly, I think this whole area would have been very different. But we have to deal with the circumstances we have. I've got a roadway that was designed for a mixed-use project that didn't happen. I got a roadway with almost 0 trips, 3 a minute in the peak time of the day. It's hard to make anything else succeed here. And so for that reason, I appreciate the coaching you've given me from the first study session, the chance to share our vision with you. Even staff has been tremendous to work with. I don't think we would have gotten here but for the collaboration and the nudging to look at things a little differently. But what this does is it brings a utilization of this property that hasn't happened, nor will it happen if this doesn't go forward. At least maybe sometime different, but I don't see it because I can't change the road. And this road is such a significant deterrent and factor and impact that we had to create something that works for that situation. At the end of the day, the office market, submarket, has 31% vacancy in the area, but we think the ability to subsidize it with the rental rates is a way to be nimble and create something more appropriate for this area and not compete against the empty offices in the nearby area, but be supportive to the VA hospital next door or other things that are in the area. So at the end of the day, I think it's an ideal use. I hope you'll see that we've probably come a long way from where we started, but sometimes we're a little stubborn. It takes us a while to get there, but I feel like we're in a much better place today than when we started. And that's the reasoning, the logic behind what we're doing. And just wanted to share that with you so you understood the why behind it. It wasn't just taking the easy money to put multifamily here, because that would have happened 16 years ago when ownership first bought it. So happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone on the dais have any? Yes.
Thanks, Adam. This rendering that's up here now, is this of this project, or is this just a random picture?
This is this project like 6 months ago. We don't have an updated rendering based on how it's
That
changed.
that was my question, because we didn't have any in the packet.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're simple and like pretty pictures, so I was just wondering if we weren't given them. I think this is a weird location. And I think whatever even square footage of commercial uses you're putting in here is not gonna work, just for what it is. So I have no problems with this project.
Yes, Commissioner Anderson?
Adam, thank you for the presentation. Quick question for you. What kind of uses is the owner kind of thinking or anticipating for that commercial space down on the first floor?
Let me go back to this slide here to help a little bit. So this is Trinsic. Trinsic has developed mixed use in Phoenix and in Tempe. So they know how to make it work, but this is more than they've done in those other locations. And in some places, they've done collab spaces. What's interesting here, and I think they believe, this, here we go. When I started, we didn't have commercial in the most westerly buildings. We only had them on the east side near the Winco. We think there can be some support services within these buildings here that can be providers for anybody who may be receiving services at the VA clinic. Now, I don't think all of that space will be leased by them, but we could see it could be a physical therapist, an eye doctor, a CPA, a sandwich shop. I don't think this is anything like a UPS store, Verizon, T-Mobile, nail salon, you know. Retail will have a hard time here, but it's going to be somebody with a boutique office, most likely.
So you can envision more professional services
Yes.
compared to like something similar to you see at Epicenter, with the
Yes.
restaurants and little shops and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about restaurants is they'll have a greater parking requirement than other things, and so it'll be a math exercise to figure out how much we could fit some of that stuff in there.
Okay. In determining the percentage of commercial, was the leasing fitness, or what's in red, was that worked into that? Because technically, that's kind of commercial use.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think another zoning attorney may have tried to get sneaky with that and count that into the math. We didn't. I still don't think it would be an honest if I try to add that as my commercial ratio. They're not residential occupying areas as far as living, but they're residential supportive, and so we did not use that in determining the math for the office commercial ratio.
And I appreciate that I don't consider those commercial, I consider those amenities. But if you don't count it as commercial, we call it an amenity, it now counts against you, doesn't it?
Right.
It goes the other direction too. It seems like we should at a minimum be able to like subtract it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, in theory, and someone would say, well, how would you get to 20%? Because if you got to use all the floors, and like floors 2 through 4 are residential, there's really not a way to get to 40% unless you build a parking garage. But if you build a parking garage, then you have to actually go taller on your residential, because a parking garage is about $38,000 to $40,000 of space to build. And so I know it was with best intentions, but sometimes we don't have the foresight when we're drafting these ordinances to think through the unintended consequences. So it's just the interesting exercise that I've worked and learned through.
Are any more questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
Sure, DiGregorio.
Adam, yeah, great presentation. Lot to digest there. How many stories residential above the commercial, the retail?
3.
So if my math is correct, or if you reduce the residential, I guess the rub is that the city wants more commercial, you want more residential. So if you reduce the residential, that would reduce the parking requirements, would give you more ability to put more commercial. Am I on the right path there with that kind of?
Close. In fact, that's one of the ways we got more commercial, because we reduced our residential by 9 units.
But that's just only 9 units out of 300 or whatever number it was. That's
Yeah.
a small amount. I mean, a very small percentage.
It is. But what's interesting is parking for commercial isn't the same ratio as parking for residential. Even though I trim off a bunch of residential units, I don't necessarily get a lot of commercial. I can put commercial in that space. I don't pick up a lot of extra commercial parking spaces. So without having commercial parking spaces, I can't build commercial suite areas. So unless I was to buy more land and put more parking on that land, it's the only way I can add more commercial square footage. If it was a 1-to-1 ratio, then clearly you would be right, but it's not a 1-to-1 ratio when you go from residential to commercial.
And you also mentioned that there's less traffic on that street, and so you're not going to have the retail being observed as much, but today people go, they're destination drivers. I mean, they pull it up on their phones, they know where they want to go. You go to these big complex or shopping centers, I mean, you're driving every which way to get your T-Mobile, or to get your restaurant. I mean, I don't think that's an issue. People will find if you have the right building or the right combination of space, or utilization of space, you'll have people there. I don't think that's an issue in today's environment with your cell phone and where I need to go. If I need to go T-Mobile, what's the one that's closest? And they'll pull it right up and they'll be there. So it's more of a destination type situation today as opposed to saying they need to see it because they're driving by.
Yeah, I don't disagree. If I was a retail user though, it's very, like if the users who will be in these spaces, you're coming because you have an appointment, most likely. Come because you have a relationship there. You already know where you're going. You're not driving by and going, oh, look, and you pull in. Because these aren't really retail, necessarily focused commercial uses on the bottom. A retail user, though, requires a certain number of trips to invest their dollars there. So the truth of the matter is that's why you see a lot of these retail pads go closer to the street, because they have a measurement tool, counts the number of trips, justify them investing in the project. I don't see a lot of retail happening in the bottom of these levels. I think there'll be mostly professional services, and then some tenant-specific supportive things, coffee shop, bakery, something like that.
I think before we get into, we're getting away from questions and getting more into discussion. We'll have a chance to ask more questions and the applicant.
Sure.
But I'd like to give the public a chance to speak too.
Yeah, apologies.
I believe we have Mr. Neville. Mr. Neville is here? Neville, Mr. Neville, please welcome to the podium. We have 3 minutes for comments from members of the public. Welcome to the commission.
I appreciate it. Thank you, commissioners. I'll try to hurry this up. My name's Morgan Neville. I'm with the Park Corporation. We're the owner of all this land. We acquired the subject property as part of an overall 58 acres. So Adam told a really sad story about this thing breaking up and becoming owned by diversified groups. The good part of the story is we came in and we bought it all up and reassembled it from 2 different ownerships, one out of bankruptcy, as a matter of fact. And we're not master planners. We're stewards of an asset and stewards of land. And so admittedly, we're not master planners. I will tell Ashley that although there's a development plan, it's always been conceptual. So that's the nature of the generic jobs and shapes. It was always conceptual because we didn't know what was going to happen here. We've had a lot thrown at us in the last 15 years between the recession and COVID, which changed a lot. I'll just tell you that we've always viewed this property as really a big mixed-use property. To date, of the 58 acres that we purchased, 34 of them are developed. 17 acres are developed as retail. That includes 2 grocery stores, a very big one, a small one, 2 banks, a veterinary practice, and all sorts of neighborhood retail. We've got a nail salon, hair, sandwich, coffee, donut shop. We're very proud about the 9-acre medical facility we did for the VA. The town of Gilbert was ecstatic when that happened. Nothing else was happening development-wise at the time. Everyone was glad that that use landed there, especially what it means to the people that served our country. And if you've ever driven by there in the middle of the day, the parking lot is never not completely packed. So we're really happy that the VA landed there. And Adam's right. We've just accepted the offers that meet kind of the vision that we have for the project. We've said no to 50 or 60 undesirable uses. I could just sit here and name things that you all would agree would have been horrible for this site. But if not for the common ownership that was established with the Park Corporation, this would have just been developed and sold off very piecemeal. It would have been a really ugly corner. Instead, it's over time, patiently being developed as a nice project, and we're proud of it. The latest addition to it was the Novelle's, Crescent's Novelle at Val Vista. That's the current multifamily project. It's currently 77% occupied, and by the end of October, they'll be fully leased up right in line with their pro forma. So multifamily's desired here. There were some other points I was going to make. I was going to tell you that, we worked for 7 years with 3 different Class A office development companies that are national companies. They marketed the hell out of this project, all build-to-suit opportunities. Nothing ever developed. I'll tell you, the punchline is this location is just too far from the center of gravity, Phoenix, Tempe. It's just too far out to support, the kind of office that we all would have loved to seen, 6 to 8 story office buildings that are visible from the freeway. Just not going to happen. And COVID sealed that deal. We're afraid forever. Adam did a great job of explaining why retail is never going to happen on this portion of the property. I would disagree, Councilman, Commissioner, I'm sorry, but I've dealt with a lot of retailers, the retail developers on this site and other sites, and I can tell you that it's all about traffic counts. And more importantly, the people that finance them, the banks, care about the traffic counts. And so maybe what you're describing will evolve eventually, but today, in today's world, the traffic counts absolutely matter for retail. I will also address that one question about the uses for the ground floor commercial. The broker who's represented the site for 16 years is excited to work with Trinsic because they think they can lease up this space with medical office tenants. This is a real core for medical uses, not only the VA, but everything that's south of the freeway and continues to grow and expand. And so they don't think we're going to have any problem at all leasing up this ground floor space. But, there's a ratio that works between making this project viable for Trinsic with a loss leader of a little bit of office space that's required by the code versus the core business, which is creating a living environment for people. I also just want to tell you that, we think this is the right use for this location, not only because office doesn't work, retail doesn't work here, but it's the right use for the right time. The nation is in a housing crisis. This metropolitan area is in a housing crisis. Multifamily, high-density multifamily is the most efficient way to provide homes for people. And so that's part of what drove us to really pursue this and give these guys the time and the bandwidth to get this thing done because we think it's the right thing. The last thing I'll point out is there has been no public objection to this use and to these proposed zoning and general plan changes. As a matter of fact, the people who are in the area, the banks and the grocery stores, they support the project because, of course, another 700 residents are going to actuate their businesses, and they'll allow us to realize we're still trying to do with the commercial things we desire to do on our 3 available pads and the crown jewel, which is a 7.3 acre hard corner. And again, we've said no to 20 different things out there because we want it to be the right thing. And one day I'll bring a great use to Kyle. I'll sit down and we'll find out what's going to happen on the hard corner. But allowing this multifamily project to go forward, bring more residents to the area, will help fill out and actuate everything else we're trying to do there. And I think that's all I have to say. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we started the timer on that one. So I assume Adam does not need to rebut that. So we'll, Ashley, I'd ask staff for any additional comments.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any additional comments, but if there are follow-up questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. I will bring this back up to the dais and ask for questions, discussion, comments. Yes, Commissioner Anderson.
Actually, I do have a question for Ashley. Ashley, at the beginning of your presentation, or towards the end of your presentation, the staff's recommendation is denial, but you said if that wasn't the case and with approval, that you guys had some stipulations that you would want to put in place. Question is, what are those stipulations? And second part of that question is, has those stipulations been presented to the applicant, and have they had a chance to review them and accept them or deny, or how has that all been worked out thought about.
Yeah, so Chair and Commissioner Anderson, those conditions were included in the PAC report, the staff report as part of Attachment 8. And because this is a PAD amendment, I think it's conditions A through X. A number of those conditions are part of the older ordinances, and then we've added a couple to kind of round out the application and to reflect the changes that they're making. So, for example, we've updated the table of deviations. I think we added a couple for traffic. If I remember correctly, I don't have them in front of me, but I can certainly grab my computer and look through those.
You want to hear from the applicant about those, or their thoughts on those, or? Adam, would you address those, I assume you've had a chance to,
We reviewed them, we agree with them.
oh, okay. Anyone else, questions or discussion?
I'll kick off the discussion since I already started speaking. After, hearing both sides, the presentation from Ashley and kind of their points and the presentation from the applicant, and there was a couple of slides in there that I think were really key for me. One was when he kind of zoomed out in the entire area to show how much commercial is really in that area along that 202, and there's a ton of it. And we're talking about one little spot here that we want to make into this somewhat of a mixed use between the residential and the retail. In terms of, the parking garages, I think that area's worked in the calculation. Personally, my thoughts are, that area should be pulled out because that's something that's forced onto multifamily developers in this town to create these parking garages that in reality is they become storage units at the end of the day. They're not used for the intent that when people are writing the LDC thinking, well, we're going to provide these enclosed parking spaces for these residents, and that's just not the case. Other cities in this area don't have this requirement. So if I heard earlier in the presentation, if you take out the parking garages, the retail is more closer to that 16%. I'm supportive of just what they're presenting right now for the retail. I kind of agree with their vision. I think there's going to be a lot of medical office space that's going to move into these areas. That's what this area kind of seems to be. And also, just to be blunt, the town doesn't share the financial risk by adding all this additional retail onto this site. If they force them to put this additional, 9,000 or 10,000 square feet, whatever the number is of retail, and they can't lease that out. I mean, this site's been vacant, as from what I understand, for over 20 years. Nobody's had any interest in doing any commercial or retail on this spot. So if they were forced to do this, add more retail into this space, and it doesn't lease out in 10, 20 years, I mean, the town doesn't share that financial risk. So I guess you could probably hear from my tone and how I'm talking. I would recommend approval of this. I think what's being presented is suitable for the area and for the time of what's going on with the economy and development in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Simon?
Yeah, I would echo what Commissioner Anderson said. I had some would say I was afforded the luxury of listening to the attorney of the, no.
With all due respect.
With all due respect, to Adam, that is. No, I would agree. I appreciate the fact that they came back with additional office space on this or retail space on this. And I could see potentially, a little coffee shop or something going in here, but there's so much restaurant and retail already in this area. I mean, really packed in just north of this, that I don't know that I see it being viable here. I did take the excruciatingly long drive down to this area and through Market Street. There's just not the traffic. I actually, honestly, my stepdaughter lives just north of this in the apartments, and I've been to the Costco a couple thousand times probably over the last multiple years, and I've never driven on Market, so other day was the first time I've actually driven that street. So I would agree. I do understand, you know, the premise behind throwing a location in your phone and driving to that location and not really worrying about it if it's closest. But I do also believe that from a resident, retail perspective, you want to be visible because, yeah, people are going to Google search you or whatever, but more often than not, they're going to drive by and they're going to see it and they're going to say, when's that place going to open? We need to go try it. So I would probably disagree there, but I agree with Commissioner Anderson. I'm okay with this. I'd like to read through the stipulations before we make a motion, if we can. Other than that, I'm in favor of it, so.
Okay, thank you. No. No? Okay. So I actually go to the VA, that's my VA, or that's the clinic for me, and I did not realize Market Street went through. So when I gone to the VA, usually it's in the morning and then I go to work, but occasionally if I go to Santan for something, I drive around because I didn't realize you could go through. One negative is everyone keeps bringing up, like any normal hospital will say, oh, physical therapists and a pharmacy and stuff. That's not the way the VA, they tend to have it. I don't think you're going to get any medical outbuildings the way a normal hospital will. And even when they outsource something, they do it in the most deliberately inefficient manner that they possibly can. And they're going to put their physical therapy clinic in Surprise because that makes sense. But they actually have physical therapy in-house in this one. But I am, and I am still a little bit hesitant on giving up on any retail in a city that's already kind of short on retail. That said, I am sympathetic to the way it's calculated and where this particular parcel is stuck too. The only issue for me previously when we were at study session was the amount of swing, the 20% deviation. I think everyone knows if we were talking about a deviation of 15%, it would have already gone through. But I'm more sympathetic to also how it has to be calculated now than I was before. Are there any more comments or questions? Davis, going once, going twice, okay. Then well, before I call for a motion, is there any direct, I was kind of done when Adam said that they were fine with the concessions. Do we want to talk about those or read?
I don't know that we need to. I was just thinking more for getting them on the record, but they are in the staff report, and they are a part of attachment B, conditions and approvals, if we do approve.
We could probably just reference the attachment, couldn't we? Then with the stipulation that we reference the attachment 8 or the stipulations or the conditions in the attachment, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion
Pro or against? I don't know how this one's going to go.
to approve. I was looking for the case numbers. GP 24-08 and Z 24.
They have to be separate.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so I'll just make the first motion to approve GP 24-08 with, well, are the stipulations of approval for the general plan amendment or they're for the rezone?
Chairman and Commissioner Gage, they're for the zoning, so they'll be for your second.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Simon seconds. Sorry, he's faster. Then with that, we have a motion and a second. Everyone, please cast your vote. Is that me? No, my vote has been cast. Oh, I should have known. Okay, all votes have been cast. And whoa, 7-0. All right, that one, congratulations, Adam, you got it. Sorry, I just thought that one was gonna have more of a split vote on that one. Okay. Oh, yes, you're right, there is a second one on that one, and I would entertain a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve Z-24 Z24-20 or at Santan with the conditions included in attachment 8 of the staff report.
We have a motion,
I will second.
and Commissioner Simon seconds that one also. Please cast your votes. All votes have been cast. Matter carries 7-0. Okay, thank you. And with that, we move to administrative items. The only administrative items I see tonight is the approval of the minutes. Consider the approval of the minutes for the study session from June. Does anyone have any comments or a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the June 4th, 2025 meeting.
Good. We have a motion from Commissioner Davis,
I'll second it.
a second from Commissioner DeGavrina.
You're being
We have a
challenged tonight.
second.
You're being challenged tonight, Bill.
Please cast your votes. DeGravina, Commissioner DeGravina. That passes 7-0. And then communications, we have no additional no executive session. Is there any report from the chairman or members? The chairman didn't even show up tonight, on current events? And then is there a report from the planning services manager on current events?
Chairman, the only update that I have for you is that we did move our September 3rd Planning Commission meeting to September 10th. That is the week of the Arizona Planning Conference, as well as Labor Day holiday, so we wanted to make sure that we made that easier to attend for folks.
That is September 10th, okay. It was on September 3rd, now it's September 10th?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, and then that is everything. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Anderson makes a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
And it is second. Excellent. All those in favor, or actually, just cast your votes. All votes are cast. 7-0. Thank you. I think we were unanimous on every vote tonight, I think. Anyway, it is probably, that is kind of the first thought that occurred to me, and then I think about everything that came out of my mouth, and I realize that can't possibly be the case. So thank you all very much, and thank you, commissioners, and thank you for everyone who hung around, except for staff. You had to be here. Thank you.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Well, you could also,
And so
you could still say that.
Yeah, Brian.
I kind of second, I agree.
yeah, so I sent him a picture of this and he goes, I'm everywhere, you can't go anywhere.
But I'm like,
Yeah, the other thing too is you,
but I also don't want to be like, well, why are you here if you're not speaking?
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, you're still,
No, don't to hear yourself.
yeah, that's the other thing too.
that's why I when
The thing is,
I never, I agree.
but the thing I think that's important,
To get on the record.
but I think that's important at times too, because sometimes you need to let others know that we're consistent, that we do agree with what the other commissioner said. 'Cause she never agrees with me.
Because this is what I do for
I understand.